Mario Tennis Fever has the soul of a GameCube game. Its wacky, over-the-top take on tennis is at its best when you have 4 friends together on the couch. And for the first time since the GameCube era, series developer Camelot has delivered an entry that feels feature-complete on day one, with the most unique characters, solo and multiplayer modes, and silly gimmicks we've ever seen crammed into a Mario Tennis game. Sadly, that doesn't mean it's all good content, as the single-player adventure once again comes up woefully short in terms of both its length and quality. But when playing locally or online, Fever's tight responsive controls and crazy abilities result in a chaotic party game that's a lot of fun in short bursts. The headline twist this time around are the mighty Fever Rackets, which dominate the action. There are 30 to unlock and choose from, and each comes with a unique special ability that can swing the game in your favor. Those powers are activated by pulling off a fever shot once your gauge is full, and they range from offensive, like planting a rotating fire bar straight from Super Mario Bros., to defensive buffs, like creating a shadow double of yourself. They can also block your screen with ink or litter piles of banana peels on both sides of the court. The Fever Rackets are a blast to experiment with, and their inclusion adds a different flavor to each match. At their best, they force you to think about all the special quirks in play. If I place a slippery sheet of ice on one quadrant of my rival's turf, we both know I'm probably going to try and hit my next shot right at it to force them onto the uncomfortable terrain. Or will I? 2-1. Shot placement in tennis is full of mind games, and the Fever Rackets' transformative effects enhance that dynamic. There are also checks and balances that are fun to uncover. The Bullet Bill racket transforms the ball into a wicked fast line drive that appears overpowered at first glance, until you learn it can be easily neutralized by playing up close at the net. And when both players use this racket, it can result in a hilarious, rapid Bullet Bill rally. Mixing and matching rackets to see what happens is great, which is why it really bothers me that there's no way to randomly select Fever Rackets, not even for CPU opponents. You can randomly select characters and courts, just not rackets, so that feels like a prime candidate to be added in a post-launch update. 5-0. Some are definitely stronger than others, but there's a smart mechanic that somewhat balances them out. Most offensive effects don't take place until the fever shot hits the ground, leading to a tense back and forth volley where both players desperately try to hit the ball before it bounces. If you're not careful, your opponent can use your big shot against you. On the flip side, Fever Rackets can also make things feel more luck-based at times, especially in doubles. 4 separate powers in play can lead to complete chaos. When your health hits 0, which forces you to sit on the sidelines in doubles or move at a slower speed in singles, it often doesn't feel like your fault because of how unavoidable taking damage becomes. Even your doubles partner's fever shot can hurt you. This isn't necessarily bad, Fever just leans harder into the party game side of things than its predecessor, Mario Tennis Aces, which almost resembled a competitive fighting game with high-level mechanics like bar management and perfect blocks. To account for all the mayhem, the actual tennis is a bit simpler. It's slightly slower and floatier, last-second dives make mistakes less punishing, and the court is a little smaller, meaning it's easier to keep a point going. I understand this choice. Ace's intense pace combined with Fever's increased madness would probably be too much to keep up with. On one hand, I miss the more hardcore version of tennis Aces provided. I played that game online for years because of its high skill ceiling and rewarding mechanics. On the other, Fever is way more fun to invite friends over to play for a casual game night, since it's easier for newcomers to pick up. So it's worse as a competitive tennis game, but better as a party tennis game. Plus, most modes let you use a high-speed ball that leads to a more upbeat rhythm, even if it doesn't entirely resolve my disappointment that Ace's thrilling trick shots and time-bending abilities have been replaced. That said, it still feels really good to release a fully charged topspin shot complete with great punchy sound effects. 6-2. Camelot has been refining the same control scheme for decades, and it's still fun to return to, especially with the largest character roster the series has ever seen. There are 38 characters to choose from, and they each play a little differently. Newcomer Baby Waluigi is a breakout star, but I've actually gravitated towards the overlooked Baby Wario, whose powered-up topspin shot helps me control the pace of each point. 2-all. The character models are probably the best looking part of Fever, with improved details like the texture on Luigi's shirt or even more bristles on Mario's mustache. However, it doesn't blow me away visually as a Switch 2 exclusive. Its cartoony art style looks good, as Mario games generally do, but it doesn't feel like a significant leap forward. It targets 60 FPS and usually hits that, but I've noticed a few times in split-screen doubles matches where it dipped before the ball was served. At least it's always consistent when it matters most during the point, even with all the wild Fever effects on screen. Keeping in line with Fever's GameCube spirit, you have to unlock a bunch of characters, rackets, courts, and special costumes by clearing specific challenges and progressing through the adventure mode. Recent Mario Sports games have tied progression and unlockables to online play, so it was a welcome sight to find I had plenty to chase that wasn't tied to my internet connection. That is, until I booted up the adventure mode and discovered what I was in for.
3, 2.
If you're mostly looking forward to Fever's single-player adventure mode, I'm sad to share that it's easily the most underwhelming part of this package. Mario and friends get transformed into babies, and Mario must regain his tennis skills to save everyone for some reason. It starts out promising, with a few gorgeous early cutscenes that throw everyone into unexpected situations. Camelot upholds its reputation for surprisingly great cinematics like this, but the adventure mode only goes downhill from there. The first 90 minutes of this disappointingly short 3.5-hour campaign take place at a tennis academy, where you undergo painfully drawn-out, simplistic tutorials.
You're getting better!
You complete fairly one-note minigames to increase your stats, mash through text that reiterates each shot type, and partake in ridiculously easy matches to move up the ranks. Throughout, you're also quizzed on your tennis knowledge, like one stumper where I was asked which character type was known for its speed: all-around, defensive, or speedy. Take a guess.
2, 0.
This is clearly meant for kids playing their first Mario Tennis game, and tutorial would have been a more appropriate name than adventure. It would be more enjoyable if the writing was clever, but the characters all say very vanilla things that essentially only exist to teach you how to play. This is a far cry from Golf Story, which remains the gold standard for how to do a proper campaign in an arcadey sports game that combines strong writing, interesting challenges, and off-the-wall diversions, all of which are missing here. You eventually leave the academy to progress through a comically small world map. This part of adventure strongly resembles Ace's campaign, where you use your tennis skills to fight a handful of bosses and solve very light puzzles. There are a few challengers to find, but there's a surprising lack of tennis matches in this tennis campaign. And just when I felt like things were ramping up a bit, it was over, so I shrugged and moved on to the other single-player offerings. Tournament mode has also taken a hit. Advancing through brackets is fine as always, but Fever introduces an announcer in the form of a talking flower from Super Mario Bros. Wonder who never stops commentating.
Hey! The court's on fire!
He reacts to every single shot,
A deep hit! Right off!
and I felt like I'd heard all of his voice lines multiple times before even wrapping up my second tournament.
Keep it going! Oh, an easy one!
This is turned on for all modes by default, but thankfully you can disable it everywhere except in Tournament and Adventure.
That's a high bounce!
The runaway best single-player mode is Trial Towers, a new addition that reminds me of Super Smash Bros. Melee's events. Each trial throws a specific setup at you, like a match where a team of 3 babies takes on a giant Bowser, and it's up to you to figure out how to exploit the setup and win a shortened match. There are even optional difficult achievements for completionists, like winning without taking damage or never losing a point. It's a lot of fun working your way through each challenge, and incorporating this concept into an adventure mode with unique characters and an interesting story should be the way forward for this series.
3, 0.
As always though, Fever shines brightest in multiplayer. You can compete online in ranked matches to improve your rank each month, either with or without Fever Rackets, depending on your preference. I was only able to play online for a couple hours before launch, but my experience was smooth. In addition to playing with up to 4 people locally, you can bring 2 people from one console into a private online lobby and set up any type of casual match you'd like. When you want something besides the standard tennis, you can pick a special match like the pinball battle that uses bumpers and paddles, or one that introduces wonder effects. These range from decent distractions to completely uninteresting, like one mode where you repeatedly lob and drop shot the ball just out of reach of a mindless CPU opponent upwards of 30 times in a row. It doesn't take long for even the best special modes to get repetitive, and I found myself quickly going back to standard matches. Thankfully, there's more than enough to shake things up thanks to the large roster of characters and rackets I highlighted earlier, but it ends up feeling like too much of a good thing. Fever is still a lot of fun in briefer sessions, but when I think of the breadth of worthwhile content found in recent Nintendo games like Kirby Air Riders or Super Mario Party Jamboree, Fever comes up a bit short. After 20 hours, I already feel like I've had more than my fill, and I see it as more of a fun distraction to play for a few minutes here and there rather than one that's going to get a serious amount of my playtime. Predictably, Mario Tennis Fever is the most fun when you're playing with a few friends. The new Fever Rackets introduce wacky, over-the-top powers that put a different spin on each match and result in a less competitive party game that's more approachable for newcomers. It's tough to recommend for solo players, as Fever's bland, uninspired adventure mode is more of an extended tutorial than an actual adventure, but exciting multiplayer moments, great controls, and a huge character roster make it a good addition to your next in-person or online game night, even if it doesn't have enough staying power to be the main event. For more multiplayer options on Switch 2, check out my reviews of Kirby Air Riders and Mario Kart World. And for your weekly fix of all things Nintendo, check out Nintendo Voice Chat, the podcast I host every week here at IGN, over on the IGN Games YouTube channel. And for everything else Nintendo, stick with IGN.